Politics is full of surprises. Today, I want to look at the most likely surprise of the 2027 election. And this surprise is to be found in two surprise candidates. I know people have written them off. People don't think about them as possible presidential candidates. Today, I want to float that surprise. And I'll talk about one today, and next Saturday I'll talk about the other. The two 2027 surprise candidates are number one, Rigathi Gachagua, aka Manyora, the truthful man of God, son of Mau Mau, currently in the United States of America. This would be your surprise candidate. The other candidate is no stranger to you. But going by what is going on in the country, in the political arena of this country, many people believe he's not going to stand. I'm here to persuade you that he's your surprise candidate, Raila Amolo Odinga. Today, like I've said, let me look at Rigathi Gachagua. Why do you write him off? There are two main reasons why people are convinced Rigathi Gachagua will not stand. The first reason is that he's not presidential. That he doesn't just come out as a person you want to elect. He doesn't cross your mind as a possible presidential candidate, leave alone president. He doesn't have that image of a president. The other reason is Rigathi Gachagua is impeached. And therefore, from a legal point of view, he may not be cleared to run. And of course, there's a third reason. The third reason being he's from Mount Kenya. And that this time round, the Mount Kenya people, just like last election, are not fielding a presidential candidate. There are many who hold the view that it is not sustainable for this country to produce a Mount Kenya candidate succeeded by a Rift Valley candidate, Kikuyu candidate succeeded by, or a Kikuyu president, Kalenjin president, Kikuyu Kalenjin, Jomo Kenyatta, Moi, Kibaki, Uhuru, Ruto. There are people who argue that way. In fact, it's not just people. Uhuru Kenyatta, President Uhuru Kenyatta himself, talked about that. So it's not it's not empty rhetoric. Let's look at these reasons. Those who believe the truthful man from Manyora cannot run because he's not presidential will do well to remember that is what we said about Rigathi Gachagua when he became deputy president. We said he was a villager who didn't even know how to eat. He was a villager who didn't even know how to dress. He was a villager who didn't even know how to talk. Be honest to yourself and with yourself. Do you still hold the same view? Is a man who didn't know how to eat the same man enjoying celebrity and state status in America? Is he the same man receiving the reception you see on your television in America? Is he the same man with all those chase cars in America? And haven't you seen the man in his magnificent home? Maybe when you call him a villager, you hadn't seen his Manyora home. You hadn't seen his current home. Maybe you hadn't seen him in a designer suit. And when you said Rigathi Gachagua could not speak well, it is the same man who is injecting. Are we still talking about the same man who utters one or two words and his opponents are seeking safety somewhere? Can't we also just accept that we were wrong about Rigathi Gachagua in terms of what he can be and cannot be? Is it true he's still as primitive as we thought when he first became deputy president? We have to be honest with ourselves. That yardstick, that measure, that assessment has been proved wrong. In the year 2016, when Donald John Trump, J. Trump, stood for elections, many of his minders and political analysts and commentators and even his party advised him to appear presidential. They told him he was too crude. He was not coming out as presidential. You know what Trump said? He could be as presidential as they come. In fact, Trump said in 2016, he could be more presidential than anybody else. But he didn't want. He went on to win that election against established figures like Hillary Clinton. So sometimes we want people to appear in a certain way, while in fact the way they appear is what sells. There is such a word as authenticity. Sometimes a person is authentic. The other reason why people think he cannot be president is because the Mount Kenya people should not be producing a president. That's a very difficult one. It's extremely difficult. In fact, the mountain is so annoyed if they feel the only way they can hit at Ruto is to produce a presidential candidate as a safeguard, as a surety they will get rid of him, then they will do it. Let's also look at the reasons why Rigathi Gachagua may choose to run. One is a human being. And ambition resides in the breasts of men. And if you are a politician, like someone said, without an ambition, you have no business being in politics. So that being human and the human ambition of power could propel Rigathi Gachagua to disregard everything else and run for office. The other reason why Gachagua may be compelled to run, he may look around. Look at Kalonzo Musyoka. Look at Maraga. Look at Matiang'i. Look at Eugene Natembeya, Martha Karua. Look at all these people, Kalonzo Musyoka, and they conclude that none of them has what it takes to defeat Ruto, even if he supported them. And with that calculation, and with that in mind, he may be left with no choice but to put forward the only man he believes can beat Ruto. And that man then will be Rigathi Gachagua. So on the basis of assessing the people who can defeat Ruto and arriving at the conclusion that none can beat Ruto, that is sufficient reason for Rigathi Gachagua to be the one to run, to convince himself that I will be taking risk, great risk, if I trust that any of these people can beat Ruto, who I want out. The third reason why he may run is that mounting a serious presidential campaign requires a number of things. First of all, you must come from a political base that has the numbers. So if you are supporting Matiang'i, the numbers he puts on the table when he starts are not convincing. And that would apply to almost any other candidate apart from one or two. He comes from the populous Mount Kenya region, and he will be starting with those. So he ticks that box, and he ticks it in his own favor. The other reason why, the other factor as you are looking at running for president is networks, both local and international. Truth be told, none of these candidates has the sort of local networks, support networks that Gachagua has. Those sort of networks you find with people like Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto. And these other candidates are quickly reduced into wannabes. On that score alone, that box of network, the sort of people you can count on across the country. And you cross the border. As we speak today, he's in America. Who among these presidential candidates, presidential hopefuls, can boast of international linkages such as has been demonstrated by Rigathi Gachagua in America? So on the basis of that alone, Gachagua could be convinced that the people he might back lack the international exposure and networks to sustain a presidential election. Resources. In a presidential election, the sort of resources you require are huge, enormous. So Gachagua may look around and look at that box. Who ticks the box of resources? Is it Matiang'i? I doubt. Is it Maraga? He has said he doesn't have money. He will put in $1 million or $2 million in his campaign. Of course, people can raise for you. But before they raise, one might draw comfort from the knowledge that in the event that fundraising didn't succeed, you have sufficient to mount a presidential campaign. So Gachagua may look around at that box and say, look here, can Kalonzo raise resources? Does he have the resources? Can he raise the resources? It's doubtful. Can Eugene Wamalwa put $1 billion on the table? Doubtful. Can Natembeya do so? Doubtful. Can Martha Karua do so? It's doubtful. How about the truthful man of God? Can he put a few billions on the table? And the answer is yes. First, from his own resources. On envelope. His own. He can put a few coins on the table that can start off a campaign. But more critically, the long stay in the US is not for public rallies. It's not for Mugithi. It's not for showmanship. Much as he's carrying a few people with the reception, with the chase cars and security around him. That's not the main reason. The main reason is resource mobilization. He has driven the gamer community into the sort of anger that will make them go deep into their pockets and hand resources to him. And therefore you will look around. He may look around and convince himself that the source of the sort of resources required, the monies required for this campaign. Remember, we have really corrupted our politics. We have polluted our politics. Just when we thought we were running away from politics fueled by money, we are back into it. The sort of money you require to run even for MCA in this country, the money you require just to run for MCA position in this country is scary. You can imagine how much. When the law for spending was being passed, people were shocked that we were saying an MP should be allowed to spend 50 million. I think people were wondering how, just how. How would you use 50 million chasing to be an MP? And a few billions to be. That's on a very mild front. The truth is, you need billions of shillings to run for president in this country. So Gachagua may be convinced, I have some of this money from my own family and personal savings and business. Do I take this money, commit it to an election in which I'm not the candidate? I have raised billions of shillings from across the world. Do I hand these billions to another candidate? And how do I convince the donors? Because they are giving me. I've listened to people from America as they tell him, Your Excellency, when you form your government, So I'm convinced that a good number of the donors, the people giving him resources, if they are giving him, will be giving him with the understanding that he's going to carry the flag. You can call it a community flag if you wish. And for these reasons, I am convinced that Rigathi Gachagua will run for office in 2027. Because the only other reason which I have not mentioned, which many people are relying on, that is impeachment. The laws of the country are clear that until you have exhausted all legal avenues, including appeal to the highest possible court, nobody will stop you from running. The impeachment case, the Gachagua impeachment case, has barely started. It will be a kind of miracle for us to expect that this case will go through before 2027, all the way up to the Supreme Court. And remember, there are multiple applications in court. So that by the time you get to hear the main suit, the applications will have taken 2 years. I do not see impeachment stopping Gachagua. So those who are counting on impeachment, I will advise them, look for something else. And for that reason, my surprise candidate in 2027, other than Raila Amolo Odinga, whom I'll talk about next week, is Rigathi Gachagua.